Mercedes has two drivers fast enough to fight at the front, but both of them are being hurt by the same hidden problem. Russell was leading in Canada before retirement turned a possible win into zero. Antonelli has already lost 26 places across lap 1 chaos, with wheel spin, clutch targets, and start problems exposing how fragile this Mercedes really is. And that is the shocking part. This is not a slow car. This is a fast car that keeps wasting its own speed. One bad launch. One reliability failure. One software issue. One race from the lead thrown away. And suddenly, Mercedes goes from championship contender to championship risk. Antonelli and Russell do not need more pace. They need Mercedes to stop destroying the chances the car already creates. Subscribe to the channel. At first, Mercedes looked like a team with two completely different problems. Russell had the brutal one. He was leading in Canada, with a race-winning chance in his hands, before retirement turned that opportunity into nothing. Not a small points loss. Not a minor frustration. A lead lost. A statement lost. A weekend that could have changed the pressure inside Mercedes, gone before it could become the result he needed. Antonelli had the messy one. Not one dramatic retirement from the lead, but repeated early race damage. Lost positions. Poor launches. Wheel spin. Start problems. Moments where the car had speed, but the race began slipping away before the first lap had even settled. Different symptoms. Same warning. Mercedes is not struggling to create pace. Mercedes is struggling to protect it. And that is a much more dangerous problem than people realize. A slow car is painful, but at least the truth is clear. The team knows it needs more downforce, more power, more grip, more efficiency. Everyone can point at the stopwatch and say, this is not enough. But Mercedes is not in that kind of crisis. The stopwatch says the car is fast. Antonelli's wins say the car is fast. Russell's pole pace says the car is fast. The problem is that fast is not the same as complete. A complete car turns speed into results. A complete team turns chances into points. A complete championship campaign does not keep leaving its drivers wondering what might have happened if the start had been cleaner, if the system had behaved better, if the car had survived when victory was there. That is why frustration grows inside a team like Mercedes. Because every lost result feels preventable. Russell can look at Canada and know the car had the pace to win. That is what makes it hurt. If he had been slow, he could accept the defeat differently. If the car had never been in contention, the disappointment would be smaller. But leading a Grand Prix, then losing it through retirement, creates a different kind of anger. It tells the driver the opportunity was real, and the team could not carry it to the finish. For Russell, that is especially damaging because of the teammate battle. He is not only fighting Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, and the rest of the field. He is fighting Antonelli inside the same garage, and Antonelli has already turned the season into something nobody expected. A rookie was supposed to learn. Instead, he started winning. A teenager was supposed to make mistakes. Instead, he became the championship leader. That changes the pressure on Russell completely. Every lost chance now feels doubled. He loses points to the field, but he also loses ground in the internal Mercedes story. The more Antonelli wins, the more Russell needs clean weekends. The more Russell suffers failures, the more the garage naturally looks toward the driver converting Mercedes' pace into results. That is how power shifts inside Formula One teams. Not with one public announcement. Not with one dramatic speech. Through races. Through points. Through the clock. And Russell knows that better than anyone. That is why Canada was not just a retirement. It was a missed chance to pull the Mercedes story back toward him. Antonelli's frustration is different, but just as important. He has been the driver making this car look like a weapon. 5 wins in 7 races. Championship leadership. Race pace that makes the rest of the grid nervous. A style that appears naturally suited to the new energy-heavy Mercedes. But even Antonelli has been damaged by Mercedes' execution problems. The start issue is the clearest sign. Losing 26 places across lap 1 incidents is not just a statistic. It is a pattern. And when a pattern appears at the start of races, it becomes frightening because starts are where the whole car is exposed at once. The clutch, the software, the tires, the torque, the driver's reaction, the grip on the track, the way the electrical power reaches the rear wheels. Everything has to agree in one violent moment. If it does, the car launches. If it does not, the car spins, hesitates, or drops into danger. And once that happens, the race changes immediately. A bad start can destroy clean air. It can put the car behind slower rivals. It can overheat the tires. It can force the driver to burn energy recovering positions instead of controlling the race. It can pull the team into a strategy it never wanted. That is why Antonelli's lost positions matter so much. They are not just rookie growing pains. They are evidence that Mercedes' car may be extremely powerful, but not always easy to control when the pressure is highest. And Mercedes knew it. That is why the team worked on software and introduced a new clutch paddle. Those changes tell a story without needing dramatic words. The start system needed fixing. And in a championship fight, a start system that needs fixing can become a season-defining weakness. Because Formula One is not only about who has the fastest car in perfect conditions. It is about who can repeat performance when everything is imperfect. Cold tires, heavy fuel, dirty air, changing grip, a rival alongside, a driver under pressure, a championship gap growing. That is where Mercedes must prove it is not just fast, but reliable in the moments that decide results. Right now, the evidence is uncomfortable. Russell's retirement showed the car can lose a result from the front. Antonelli's start problems showed the car can lose a race shape before the race has truly begun. Together, they reveal the same Mercedes flaw. The team has created speed, but not enough certainty. Certainty is the word that matters. Drivers need certainty that the car will launch cleanly. They need certainty that the power delivery will be predictable. They need certainty that the race-winning car will finish. They need certainty that when they do their part, the system will not take the result away. Without that, frustration builds quickly. Because drivers are judged by outcomes, not explanations. Nobody remembers every detail of a clutch target when the points table is published. Nobody gives Russell back a win because the car had the pace before it retired. Nobody gives Antonelli extra credit for the places he might have kept with cleaner launches. The result is what remains. And if Mercedes keeps losing results it had the speed to achieve, both drivers have every reason to be angry. That is the hidden danger for the team. Fast cars raise expectations. But fragile fast cars create tension. The faster the Mercedes looks, the worse every failure feels. The more Antonelli wins, the more painful his start losses become. The more Russell shows pole-level speed, the more damaging his retirements become. The car is giving both drivers hope. Then, at the worst moments, it is making them pay for believing in it. That is why this first part of the story matters so much. Mercedes does not need a miracle. It needs control. Control at the start. Control over reliability. Control over energy deployment. Control over the small details that turn speed into points. Because the car has already shown it can be a championship weapon. The problem is that, right now, it can also behave like a championship trap. Then the deeper pattern starts to show. Because Russell's retirement and Antonelli's start problems are not just two separate Mercedes headaches. They are two different ways of losing the same thing. Conversion. That is the word that should worry Mercedes most. A fast car gives you opportunity. A clean car turns opportunity into points. A championship car does both, again and again, without forcing its drivers to survive chaos every weekend. Right now, Mercedes has the first part. The speed is real. Antonelli's wins prove it. Russell's pole in Canada proved it. The car has enough performance to make rivals uncomfortable and enough peak pace to fight for the biggest results. But the second part is where the danger lives. Mercedes has not always converted that speed cleanly. And in a championship fight, unconverted speed is almost as painful as no speed at all. Because the stopwatch does not award points for what should have happened. It does not care that Russell was leading before he retired. It does not care that Antonelli had the pace to recover after a bad launch. It does not care that the car looked strong before the race began to fall apart. The final classification only records what survived. And that is the problem. Mercedes has a car that can create winning situations, but the team is still proving whether it can protect those situations all the way to the finish. Russell's Canada retirement is the sharpest example because the damage is so easy to understand. A race lead became 0. Not second. Not third. Not a reduced reward. Nothing. That kind of result is brutal because it leaves no comfort. The pace was there, but the points were not. The chance was there, but the championship gain disappeared. And for Russell, who is already chasing Antonelli inside the same team, that loss hurts twice. It hurts in the championship. And it hurts inside Mercedes. Because every time Antonelli converts speed into wins, and Russell loses a chance to answer, the internal balance shifts a little more. That is how teams change. Not always through direct favoritism. Not always through public decisions. Sometimes, it happens quietly, through data. Through results. Through which driver brings the car home. Through which side of the garage gives engineers the clearest proof of what works. If Antonelli keeps winning, Mercedes will naturally study him more closely. If his style keeps extracting the best from the 2026 car, the development direction will start leaning toward what he needs. That is not politics. That is Formula One logic. Teams follow lap time. And that makes Russell's lost opportunities even more dangerous. He does not just need to be fast. He needs Mercedes to give him clean weekends where he can prove his speed still belongs at the center of the project. Canada could have been that weekend. Instead, it became another reason the gap felt heavier. Antonelli's problem is different, but it connects to the same theme. He has been the driver making Mercedes look frightening, yet even he has had moments where the team's execution pulled him into trouble. Losing 26 places across lap 1 incidents is not normal background noise. It is a sign that something in the launch phase has been too fragile, too costly, or too difficult to repeat cleanly. And the start is one of the most violent tests in Formula 1. The car is heavy. The tires are not fully alive. The grip level is uncertain. The driver has a tiny window to react. The clutch must bite perfectly. The software targets must be correct. The rear tires must accept the torque without spinning. And with the 2026 Mercedes, there is another layer. The electrical power has to become forward motion, not wasted energy. If it becomes wheel spin, the car does not just lose grip. It wastes one of its greatest weapons. That is why a bad launch is so damaging in this new era. It is not only a poor start. It is a failure to control the power system at the first moment of maximum pressure. And when that happens, the race can begin in the wrong shape. A driver loses clean air. He falls behind cars he should not be fighting. He overheats the tires. He burns energy recovering. He gets pulled into battles that were never part of the plan. That is how one poor start becomes 20 laps of damage. Mercedes clearly understood this, because the team worked on software and introduced a new clutch paddle. That tells us the start issue was not being treated like a minor driver habit. It was part of the car's performance system. And this is where the Mercedes frustration becomes more serious. Because both drivers are being judged by results that are being affected by execution problems. Russell is judged for falling behind Antonelli, but one of his strongest chances vanished through retirement. Antonelli is praised for leading the championship, but his races have still been made harder by launch problems. Both drivers can look at the same garage and ask the same question. How much more could we have done if the car and team had converted everything cleanly? That question is dangerous because it creates pressure inside the team. A driver can accept losing to a faster rival. A driver can accept making his own mistake. But when the car has the pace, and the team still loses points through reliability, starts, software, or race execution, frustration becomes much harder to control. Because it feels preventable. And preventable problems are the ones that create tension. The most worrying part for Mercedes is that these problems do not only cost individual races. They create opportunity for everyone else. Ferrari does not need Mercedes to be slow if Mercedes keeps leaving points behind. McLaren does not need to beat Mercedes at its absolute best if it can pressure Mercedes into messy races. Red Bull does not need the fastest car every weekend if Mercedes keeps turning dominant positions into uncertain outcomes. That is how a championship stays alive against a faster package. You wait for the faster team to fail at conversion. And Mercedes has already shown enough vulnerability for rivals to believe that door is still open. This is why the power unit story matters so much. People hear engine problem and imagine smoke pouring from the back of the car. But in this Mercedes, the deeper issue is not only whether the engine survives. It is whether the entire power system can be controlled cleanly across a full weekend. Can the car launch? Can it recover energy properly? Can it deploy without wasting battery? Can both drivers keep the rear tires connected when the power arrives? Can the system stay reliable when the car is leading? Can the team avoid turning speed into stress? That is the real question. And the answer is not fully comfortable yet. The 2026 Mercedes appears to have enormous potential, but it also appears to demand exact conditions to unlock that potential consistently. That is why Antonelli can make the car look dominant, while the same team can still look vulnerable. The ceiling is high, but the floor is unstable. A high ceiling wins races. An unstable floor loses championships. That is the danger. Because over a full season, the winner is not always the team with the most frightening peak. It is the team that delivers its peak often enough, cleanly enough, and reliably enough, under pressure.